Imagine standing on the cusp of an era, the scent of gunpowder in the air and the ground quaking beneath the weight of history. This was the moment a young general named Napoleon Bonaparte stormed across a fateful bridge and emerged on the other side as, wait for it, the Little Corporal. Stick around to discover how one battle not only changed the trajectory of a war but birthed an iconic nickname that would follow a man through the rise and fall of empires. Now, let's delve into the mesmerizing tale of the Battle of Lodi. The year is 1796, and Europe is ablaze with the revolutionary fires of change. Kings and queens are trembling on their thrones, creaky old empires are caving under the weight of their own contradictions, and the air is electric with whispers of liberty, equality, and fraternity. On this turbulent stage bursts a brand new sort of warfare, driven by revolutionary fervor and cutting-edge tactics, led by a man who would become a living legend, a personification of both genius and hubris. Enter Napoleon Bonaparte, a young Corsican artillery officer, just 26 years young. He's now at the helm of the French army in Italy, a theater dismissed by many of the armchair generals in Paris as an inconsequential sideshow. Imagine being a soldier in that army, your uniform soiled and frayed from months of arduous campaigning. You've heard tales of this young general, stories of his audacity, his tactical brilliance. Still, you've also heard murmurs, critics dismissing him as inexperienced, a glory hunter, even a bit of a gambler. You're curious, perhaps even skeptical. After all, you've seen generals come and go, their lofty promises turning to dust on the battlefield. But there's something different about Napoleon. It's there in the way he scrutinizes the terrain, in how his eyes narrow when he examines enemy positions as if he can envision the ebb and flow of the battle before the first shot is fired. It's there in the way he addresses his troops, not as expendable pawns but as comrades in a grand adventure. He talks not just of victory but of destiny, and when he speaks, you start to believe, not just in him but in the very idea that you are participating in a groundbreaking chapter of history. Now take a moment and immerse yourself in this dramatic landscape. Imagine the glistening river Adda, meandering through the rolling hills and verdant plains of northern Italy. It's not just any river, it's a living, breathing obstacle that stood as a stern sentry between the audacious Napoleon and his grand visions for Lombardy. As rivers go, Adda wasn't just a pretty picture, it was a line in the sand, a natural moat protecting the Austrian-controlled heartlands beyond. And then, there was the bridge. Ah, the Lodi Bridge. A modest structure, perhaps, but one that had been turned into a fortress by the Austrians. To the casual observer, it might seem like just another way to cross the river. But make no mistake, this was no ordinary bridge. The Austrians had transformed it into a choke point, fortified with artillery and infantry. It was a defiant statement, a gauntlet audaciously thrown down at the feet of the French forces. Enter Napoleon. He had that uncanny ability to scan a battlefield and instantly grasp its ebb and flow, its strengths and vulnerabilities. He looked at Lodi Bridge and he knew that capturing it would be akin to holding the Austrian army by its jugular. It wasn't just a tactical edge he was after, it was the chance to deliver a soul-crushing blow to the Austrian morale, a chance to make them doubt, to make them falter. Yet, as always in war, the path to glory was strewn with peril. The Austrian artillery was a deadly ensemble of firepower, perched and ready to unleash hell on anyone foolish enough to attempt the crossing. The air was thick with tension, filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder and sweat. The Austrian cannons roared with fury, spitting fire and hurling iron balls that ripped through the air like demons seeking souls. Each shot was a potential harbinger of death, turning the bridge into a nightmarish landscape, a deadly maze of flames, smoke, and splinters. In the throes of battle, where smoke clouds vision and the noise of cannons deafens the senses, where men scramble, and the line between order and anarchy becomes thin, something magical happened. Amongst the tumultuous backdrop of war, Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of remarkable ambition, broke the conventional mold of leadership. He did something that would become the stuff of legends, whispered about in the candlelit halls of military academies, and discussed fervently over the dinner tables of historians. You'd think a general, especially one of Napoleon's stature, would be content orchestrating the symphony of battle from a vantage point, away from the immediate perils of the front line. You'd imagine him surrounded by aides, looking at the unfolding drama through a telescope, maybe making grand gestures, and sending orders via couriers. But no. Napoleon, in a move of audacious brilliance, dived right into the heart of the storm. Dust-covered and with an unyielding determination in his eyes, he reached back to his early military days, to his expertise in the artillery. This man, who could command entire armies with a flick of his wrist, began personally positioning and aiming the cannons. Can you visualize that? The supreme commander of the French forces, his hands gripping the cold iron of the artillery, making minute adjustments, ensuring the perfect angle and trajectory for the shot. It was a task usually reserved for the lower echelons, for the corporals who knew the ins and outs of cannon operation. But here, on this day, the lines of hierarchy blurred. The general had become the corporal. It was as if he wanted to send a message, not just to his own troops, but to history itself. That true leadership is not about rank or title, it's about doing what needs to be done, no matter how small or big. The effect of this act was electric. The French cannons, under Napoleon's direct command, unleashed a barrage so fierce, so precise, that it seemed like the very gods of war were guiding them. With each booming shot, the Austrians faced a ferocious onslaught that they hadn't anticipated. They were on their back foot, scrambling, their previously formidable positions turning precarious. The echoing roars of the French guns, punctuated by Napoleon's direct intervention, sent a shockwave across the battlefield, making it abundantly clear that this was no ordinary battle, and Napoleon was no ordinary general. This was history in the making, right in front of everyone's eyes. In the heart of battle, when the air is thick with tension and the ground shakes from the echoes of war, it's often the unexpected moments that galvanize soldiers the most. And so it was at Lodi. The French troops, already seasoned by countless skirmishes and battles, witnessed something they hadn't quite seen before. Their general, the man responsible for their very lives, standing shoulder to shoulder with them, his hands smeared with the same gunpowder that stained their uniforms, his eyes reflecting the same fire that burned in their souls. This wasn't just strategy, this was a display of camaraderie, of leadership that transcended mere orders. The sight of Napoleon, hands-on and undeterred by the dangers around him, became a beacon of inspiration. It was as if his energy, his sheer force of will, became infectious. The troops felt it, this surge of adrenaline, this undying spirit of conquest. And with a unified, impassioned roar, they pressed on towards their objective, the Lodi Bridge. Napoleon, no longer just a distant figure barking orders, was at the vanguard. He was the tip of the spear, driving forward, his presence amplifying the fervor of his men. The Austrians, formidable as they were, could not withstand this tidal wave of determination. Their lines broke, their defense wavered, and like a house of cards, their grip on Lodi Bridge collapsed. Now, battles have their moments of triumph, and the French had seen many under Napoleon. But Lodi? Lodi was different. It wasn't just a battle, it was a revelation. As the dust settled and the euphoric cheers of victory rose, the soldiers looked towards Napoleon. Their gazes held something new, something deeper, an admiration that went beyond mere respect for rank. They saw in him a reflection of themselves, a warrior, a brother, a comrade. Amid the embraces, the relieved laughter, and the songs of victory, a whisper began. It moved through the ranks, from one soldier to the next, growing in fervor and affection with each repetition. The Little Corporal. It was more than a nickname, it was an honorific, a title bestowed not out of formality but out of genuine love. It wasn't about his physical stature, nor solely about his hands-on leadership, it was an acknowledgement. A realization that, at his core, Napoleon, despite his genius, his grand plans, and his lofty ambitions, was fundamentally one of them. He was their general, yes, but also their brother in arms. And so, As the orange hues of twilight cast long shadows over the Italian landscape, the sun wasn't just setting on a victorious day, it was setting on a moment that would forever be etched in the annals of history. A legend, not just of a battle won, but of a bond forged, was truly solidified that day at Lodi. What happened afterward, you ask? Imagine the bustling streets of Milan, a jewel of Europe, awaiting its conqueror. With the Austrians making a hasty retreat, their footsteps echoing with defeat, they left Lombardy like a ship abandoning its anchor. Milan, majestic and rich, threw open its grand gates, practically rolling out the red carpet for the triumphant French troops. The riches of the city didn't just glitter with gold and silver. No, they had a far greater value. They replenished the French war chest, ensuring that the revolutionary spirit could march onwards, its path lit by the flames of ambition and glory. Napoleon, with Milan's keys in his pocket, wasn't just a victor on the battlefield, he became the toast of the town, quite literally. Banquets were thrown in his honor, the finest wines were poured, and the chatter of the elite was all about this young, audacious general. Back in France, the news spread like wildfire. Newspapers, the tweets of the 18th century, were abuzz with tales of his daring and brilliance. The ink hadn't even dried, and already every café in Paris resounded with praises of his courage. Politicians, always with an ear to the ground and an eye on the future, started whispering among themselves. They no longer saw Napoleon as just another military asset, a pawn on their chessboard. No, he was rapidly becoming the game's master, a rising star whose trajectory seemed bound for the heavens. In the corridors of power and in the bustling bazaars, one name was on everyone's lips, Napoleon. And the legend had only just begun. If you love this epic journey back in time, give this video a thumbs up. Do you have thoughts or burning questions about Napoleon or the Battle of Lodi? Drop a comment below. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and ring the bell so you can join us on future adventures. Until next time, keep the wheels of time turning.